All right, so you've passed an AWS certification. Congratulations. But then you get that feeling, that little wave of panic when someone asks you to design a real system. If that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to turn that textbook knowledge into practical, real-world wisdom. So let's dive right in.
Right? You've got the certificate framed on the wall, you've memorized all the service names, but now your boss is looking at you saying, okay, design our new production system. Whoa, that's the moment of truth, isn't it? It's where all that theory smacks right into reality, and the pressure is definitely on. So what do you do now?
Well, here's the secret, and it's a big one. Being a great cloud architect isn't about memorizing every single service AWS offers. It's about having a mental framework, a kind of strategic mindset you can apply to pretty much any problem they throw at you. Think of it less like a dictionary and more like a blueprint for your thinking. And to build that mindset, we're going to break it down into 4 essential pillars. We've got ironclad security, peak performance, unbreakable resilience, and smart efficiency. These are going to be the 4 cornerstones for any awesome AWS architecture you build from here on out. Okay, let's kick things off with the most critical pillar of all, security. Because let's be honest, if your system isn't secure, all that fancy performance and resilience stuff, it just doesn't matter. This is all about building a digital fortress, right, from the ground up. So, our goal here is to create layers of defense, kind of like an onion. We want to control exactly who has access to what, and we need to make absolutely sure our data is protected, whether it's just sitting in a database or flying across the network. All right, here's a classic situation you're going to run into. Your application running on a server needs to grab something from an S3 bucket. Now, the tempting but oh so dangerous thing to do is to just hard code your access keys right into the application. Please don't do this. It is a massive security risk. If those keys ever leak, it's game over. So what's the right way? The answer, and this is a total game changer, is to use an IAM role. Seriously. Instead of putting secret keys in your code, you just attach a role to your EC2 instance. Then, like magic, it gets secure, temporary credentials that automatically rotate. This means no more secrets in your code, which is a huge security.
Oof, here is a scenario that gives engineers actual nightmares. You're clicking around in the AWS console, you're a little tired, you make one wrong click, and poof, you've just terminated the main production database. How do we stop that gut-wrenching moment from ever happening?
The solution is actually incredibly simple. You just enable termination protection. Think of it like putting one of those clear plastic safety covers over a big red button. It's just a simple checkbox, but it forces you to take an extra step to confirm you really want to delete that critical instance. Trust me, that little click can save you a world of hurt. Okay, so our fortress is secure. Awesome. But we don't want it to be a slow, clunky fortress, right? Of course not. So it's time to talk about our second pillar, peak performance. We need our systems to be fast, responsive, and ready to handle whatever our users throw at it. Our goal here is pretty straightforward. We're going on a hunt to find and eliminate any bottlenecks. And we'll do that by making sure we're always matching the right AWS tool to the right job so your app is always snappy and quick for your users. Okay, here's a super common performance issue. Your app just feels slow. And after some digging, you trace it back to the database. The problem? It just can't read and write data from its disk fast enough to keep up. So what's the fix?
This slide really just nails the importance of picking the right tool for the job. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, right? Well, it's the same thing here. For a database that's doing a ton of transactions, you want a storage-optimized instance. You pair that with a high-performance EBS volume, and boom, you've got the incredible disk speed you need.
Now let's talk about the network. Imagine you've got 2 servers that need to talk to each other, like constantly. They're passing a ton of data back and forth. How do you make that connection as fast and direct as humanly possible? The secret here is something called a placement group. This is basically you telling AWS, hey, see these 2 servers? I need you to put them as physically close to each other in the data center as you can on the fastest network you've got. The result is a super fast connection with incredibly low latency. It's perfect for those really chatty applications. All right, on to our third pillar, resilience. Because here's a hard truth about the cloud. Failure is not an if, it's a when. A server will fail. A network connection will drop. So the real question isn't if it will happen, but how is your system going to respond when it does? Our goal is to build systems that are like a heavyweight boxer. They can take a punch, shake it off, and keep on fighting. This is all about designing for high availability and having a plan for rapid recovery, so we keep downtime for our users to an absolute minimum. So, how do you actually make your application bulletproof? I mean, how do you architect it so that it can survive the failure of an entire data center and your users don't even notice anything happened? The classic answer is this beautiful three-part strategy. First, you use an auto-scaling group which acts like a medic, always making sure you have a healthy number of servers running. Second, you spread those servers across multiple availability zones so you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And third, you put an elastic load balancer out front to act as a traffic cop, automatically sending users away from any trouble spots. Together, these three create a system that basically heals itself. And that brings us to our final pillar: smart efficiency. Because look, a brilliant, secure, super fast, resilient architecture is, well, it's pretty useless if it's way too expensive to run. This is all about getting the most bang for your buck. The goal here is simple: work smarter, not harder. It's about finding that perfect sweet spot between performance and cost, so you can deliver incredible value to your business without, breaking the bank. And this slide shows a fantastic strategy for that. For your steady, predictable baseline traffic, the stuff that has to run all the time, you use reliable on-demand instances. But for those sudden spikes in traffic, or for background jobs that can handle an interruption, you use spot instances. And check this out: they can save you up to 90%. That is a massive cost savings. It's the perfect way to get reliability and an incredible price. So here it is. This is your new cheat sheet for thinking like a real-world AWS architect. For security, your mantra is least privileged access, and your tool is IAM roles. For performance, think optimized hardware using placement groups. For resilience, it's all about redundancy and failover with auto-scaling groups. And for efficiency, you're going to master cost optimization with spot instances. This is it, the core of your new toolkit. So there you have it. You now have the blueprint, the mental framework for building powerful, effective, real-world solutions on AWS. You have the pillars, the mindset, and the core strategies. So the only question left is, what amazing things are you going to build?